we all have these tiny moments in life that kind of spring in your head, and they might seem very insignificant, very small. A lot of times we dismiss them as, it's not a big deal, or I don't have enough time, or it's not gonna make much of a difference. Well, here I was sitting going, I want my kids to have the same experience that my Boy Scouts did, to feel the joy of serving others, someone other than themselves, think about someone else, as well as appreciate the things I have. So those 3 inches, I stomped my feet on the floor, jumped off the couch, was a hard 3 inches to do. And I started walking out to the garage, and my kids are like, Dad, where are you going? I'm like, you know what? We got leftover wood. I'm going to build another bed, and by gosh, you guys are coming with me. My time spent doing that to solve that problem is the best use of my time that I knew. No kid is going to sleep on the floor in my town if I had anything to do with that.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and today we welcome a true change maker on an incredible mission. No kid sleeps on the floor in my town is his slogan. And what he has turned into, it started as a garage project, has now evolved into Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a nonprofit that has provided beds to over 250,000 children worldwide. With 350 chapters now in 4 countries and over 500,000 volunteer hours, this initiative is about more than beds. It's about purpose, joy, and connection. And he has been featured on platforms like PBS, NBC, TEDx, and that's just to name a few. And also, speaking of naming things, CNN has named him one of their top 10 heroes. Welcome to the show, the founder of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, Luke Mickelson.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Great to have you on the show, brother. I'm doing well. Just love your story. I know we got to chat. We literally met about 10 minutes ago. I just love talking with you already. Got a great energy about you. And when I saw your bio and just learned about you and wanted to get you on the show, I knew that we were in alignment on a lot of things. So, and it sounds like we got more in common than we even realized. So
we do.
So I'm going to let everybody know they're going to love what you're about to talk about, what we're about to talk about, and any details, resources, anything you mention in the show notes. We got everything clickable for them, your website, your social media. So they're not going to go hunting and looking for all that on and end up on, looking for the wrong Luke Mickelson and the whole deal. So
there's a few out there. If I remember, actually, I remember when CNN Heroes called me. I don't think I've ever shared this story. I was at my son's track meet, and it was windy in Idaho. It's windy and all sorts. I could barely hear, and it was just this grumbling message. CNN Hero, give us a call back. I was like, what the heck is that? So when I got home and my son walks in the door, I said, oh yeah, hey, great job on your track meet, blah, blah, blah. I got to call this guy back for something from CNN Heroes. And he goes, CNN Heroes? Did you say CNN Hero? And I guess at school, because I didn't know what the heck that was, man. I'm from Idaho. We don't watch CNN over here.
Yeah, I hear you.
So anyways, and he says, yeah, we watch in school. And he kind of told me about it. So I got a little freaked out about it. It was a pretty cool deal. Yeah. And so when I called back, they wanted me to come out and, of course, be a part of that. And I can't even remember why I was going to tell you that story, but
no, you were telling me the story because they were probably looking at the wrong Luke Mickelson on Google.
That's it. So they're like, we need to check a few things out first because we found a Luke Mickelson that we hope you're not him.
I had somebody do the same thing to me. I was reaching out to them to see if I can help them out. And this is years ago. As prospecting, I had. One of our team members was like, helping me get additional connections on LinkedIn. And this guy reaches out and he was actually just a complete jerk the entire time. He's like, oh, I did some research on you as well. Cause I was like, I picked a few things that we would talk about. Like, hey, I'm really interested. Like if you have a book out, and I picked a couple things I was interested in the book. And then he had this out and so it's like I was genuinely putting time and effort into getting to know this guy.
Sure.
And he's like, I could do that too. And he's like, I see that there's a Mike DiCioccio that died 2 years ago. And there's one that's this. So which one are you? Basically saying that he could Google me too, was his whole point arguing. I'm like, I'm just trying to connect with you on LinkedIn. Why are you even on here if you don't want to meet people?
Yeah,
I wasn't,
chill, dude.
I didn't hit him with a sales pitch. I was just literally hey, I think maybe we should meet. Some of the stuff you're doing is pretty cool. And he didn't like that. I was like, excuse me. So anyway, pretty crazy. But anyway,
it's good you're the alive one.
I'm the alive one, as far as I know, and still working on being the best version of myself I can every single day. And so let's start with this, right? I'm excited to learn about it. I know our audience is probably like, man, get back to that whole cool thing, that project. So it was a Christmas project too, which is pretty neat. And it evolved into a nationwide nonprofit, which I mentioned in the intro, impacting the lives of over 250,000 children. Start right there. How does this thing start? I mean, there had to be one child that you saw that didn't have a bed in that. Tell the story.
Well, yeah, thanks, Mike. It's interesting. It's definitely a journey. When Sleep in Heavenly Peace was, let's say, introduced to me, I was in my mid-30s, probably like any other schmo out there. You're going through your mid-30s. You've been in your job for almost 20 years, and I'd served in church. I love serving in church. I was a missionary for my church a long time ago, and I just love getting out and serving the community. And you got to understand, I'm from a small town like Kimberly, Idaho. I graduated with 69 people. I mean, and that's there was only 400 people in our high school. That was 9 through 12. And the beauty about being in a small town, you could pick up a ball and throw it in any general direction with a little bit of accuracy. You had to play sports. I mean, I just had to play them all. I tell everybody, look, there were 2 weeks, my junior high all the way through high school. There's only 2 weeks of the entire year I didn't either have a game or practice. So you just, if you were a talented or had any sort of talent.
Was it because the amount of, I mean, everyone was closer knit, right? But you needed nine guys on the baseball team.
You need nine guys.
You got to at least have 18s, so you can play a game. I was a
football guy, and we literally, my senior year, which we were supposed to finish dead last in high school in our division, we finished third in state. We had 5 seniors. That was it. The rest were, there was only 18 people on the team, that me and 3 or 4 of us, we never left the field ever. I was
all right. If you guys are tuning in and maybe you're not huge football fans, to understand when he just said 18 people, normally a football roster in the NFL has 53.
Yeah.
Right. And then guys, changing it out on plays. There's 11 guys on the field on offense, 11 on defense. To have 18, they're playing both sides of the ball, playing special teams, they're lucky if they're getting a breath in between plays. That's incredible. What was your position? What did you play?
Well, so I most of my career I was either quarterback or running back on offense. Then defense, I played what's called wheel linebacker or weak side linebacker, which did a lot of pass coverage and stuff like that. Then I punted, kicked, punt return, kick return. So literally never left the field, which was really cool. You don't see that nowadays very often, but this is just an example of what taught me growing up in a small town to enjoy my friends, to enjoy teamwork and team building. And my mom, I was raised by a single mom, and I had 3 sisters, a brother. I was the sharpest dressed kid in town because these sisters of mine made sure of it.
That's cool. Where were you in the hierarchy?
I was the second to the last. So I had had a baby sister, and then 2 older sisters and an older brother. And my older brother, he was the oldest, and he did his own thing. He left the house a little early. So really, it was me and 4 women: my mom, my 3 sisters, and the dog. And it was great. I really learned how to connect with female and interaction. Even in my work career, I was an outside salesman, worked for a water treatment company, and I'd always, I'd walk into the door, and of course there's the barrier called the receptionist. And boy, I had a talent to get past the receptionist.
Yeah, because you had 4 of them at home that you had to work over.
4 of them to practice on.
If you wanted to watch a movie that you liked with like The Sandlot here on my desk, you had a lot of selling to do to get that thing on.
I'm gonna lose my man card, but Sleepless in Seattle, grew up, was one of my favorite movies. Come on.
I feel like our sponsor for this episode should be Sleep Number. I mean, we're talking about beds, Sleepless.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great fit. I didn't think about that.
There it is. Let's get actually back on track again, because you started, I asked you the question about, all right, this whole thing started in the garage. Yeah. And I just want to hear some of the early days of how it became what it's become. And I appreciate you sharing some of your backstory and stuff, but if we start talking about football and sports, this whole episode is just going to be gone. Bro. Today's draft day, by the way, as we record it. And it's funny you're talking about a player playing both sides of the ball. I think the number one prospect actually plays wide receiver and defensive back. So it's actually kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Heisman winner, right?
Yeah, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now.
Travis Hunter, right?
Travis Hunter, yeah.
And gotta understand, anyway, I'm from Idaho, so I had Ashton Genty, which was the big argument he should have won this year. Anyways, boy, we're gonna get lost down that rabbit hole really quick.
So I'm putting an end on that sentence. We could talk about it another day. I'm a huge Bills fan, huge football fan. But yeah, put us in the world of scene. We're in the garage with you. You're building a bed. It's based on, I believe you said your daughter's one of her bunk beds or something, right? So how did that come about?
You bet. And it started a little bit before that. See, and what I was getting to is, being in a small town and learning and knowing everybody in town. I went to church and I was what was called a young men's president, which basically in the South, that's kind of like a youth pastor, although I'm not a youth pastor. I just coached and worked with kids well. Well, in our leadership meetings with the other leaders of the church, they talked about families that we were helping in the community, right? And I knew most everybody, not everybody, but most everybody. But they were talking about this one family where, the husband had some mental health issues, couldn't hold a job. Mom was the school bus driver, one of them, and just really low income type situation. In fact, they lived in an area, an apartment complex I didn't even know existed in my town. That's how remote it was. Well, one thing that brought up is the kids, they were helping them with food and transportation, and kids didn't have any beds and blah blah. And I was like, wait a minute, did you just say the kids didn't have any beds? Like, what are they sleeping on? Like mattresses? No, they're just sleeping on the floor. And I went, oh are you serious? Like, and you understand, one of my responsibilities as a young men's president was to take these boys ages about 12 to 18, and I was responsible for, of course, their spiritual growth, but also the activity. Like, what are we going to do on Wednesday nights? And the church adopted the Boy Scouts program. So basically, I was the leader of the Boy Scouts. And to find an activity where we can have these teenage kids get out from behind a screen, and enjoy themselves and have an opportunity, which I thought, great, I'm going to get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands. I'm going to put a drill and a sander in it. And you know what? We're going to teach them something. And they're going to enjoy and learn the value and the joy that comes from service, appreciate the things that they have, all this stuff. So that's what we did. I said, you know what? I'm going to take my Boy Scouts. We're going to build a bed. I've never built a bed before. In fact, I kind of kid, my wife at the time had she had this little frame. She did like artsy fartsy stuff. She'd build frames and stuff. I had to use some of her tools because I didn't have all the tools I needed. That's okay. I figured it out. But they came over, and for a week we built this bunk bed, patterned it after my daughter's bed. And the cool thing is I just watched these kids team up, and some of them didn't play sports like I did, but as a coach and as a parent, that's what I wanted to see, is these kids team up, and one's handing screws and one's grabbing the stain and one's painting this. And, it was really cool to watch, and they had a good time. Well, the sad part of it, for me anyways, is I didn't get to go on the delivery. They took the bed over to the kids with their parents and the leadership, other leaders, and blah, blah, blah. Well, next day at church, I got to hear the story of how amazing it was. And I was like, man, gosh dang it. I missed the benefits, right? I didn't reap the reward of the effort.
The change that you were looking to make is you didn't get to experience that moment.
And the funny thing was, I didn't even really know the change was something I needed. I was going through kind of this faith crisis at the time. Am I in the right place? What do I believe? Am I being a good dad? My kids were, 10, 6, and 1. I just was in this mixture of, I don't know, midlife crisis, I guess you might call it. Well, when I heard that, came home from church that day, we're sitting down, it's a 3 weeks before Christmas, and this stupid Xbox game and console commercial comes online, and every parent can look at their kids going, don't you dare ask for that, because you're not going to get it. And of course, my kids, pop up. And Mike, it just hit me just right. Here I just had this great experience that filled this hole that was in my heart of, what purpose do I have in this life? How can I be more? How can I be better? And I had this experience that filled some of that. But later on, I was losing that. I was back in the grind. Here's my kids complaining about the presents they know I'm not going to get. And I just delivered a bed, or helped deliver a bed to children that don't have beds. And you guys are complaining about an Xbox game you're not going to get. Right. I remember, and this was unique. And I talk about tiny moments, Mike, how whether you're an entrepreneur, businessman, or regular worker, or just a guy that's guy or gal's looking to make a change, we all have these tiny moments in life that kind of spring in your head. And they might seem very insignificant, very small. And we always dismiss, it's not always, but a lot of times we dismiss them as, it's not a big deal, or I don't have enough time, or, it's not going to make much of a difference. Well, here I was sitting going, I want my kids to have the same experience that my Boy Scouts did, to feel the joy of serving others, someone other than themselves, think about someone else, as well as appreciate the things I have. So those 3 inches, I stomped my feet on the floor, jumped off the couch, was a hard 3 inches to do. And I started walking out to the garage, and my kids are like, Dad, where are you going? I'm like, you know what? We got leftover wood. I'm going to build another bed, and by gosh, you guys are coming with me. Yeah. So that week, we spent, me and my kids, my daughter.
Did you do the Tim Allen grunt? Yeah, I got to ask you.
I could have used it, that's for sure.
I've been rewatching it a little bit because it's on Netflix now, and my mom's been texting me and going down like memory lane because we liked that show, growing up, and she never got to. I don't think she got to. Well, maybe she did watch it with us. I just remember our dad watching some of those shows with us, and so, anyways, back to you.
Yeah.
But
boy,
so
if you ever heard of
teaching gratitude?
Tim Allen's story is amazing, by the way. So.
I a little bit here and there, but I definitely would be interested in going back down that. I've always been a fan of his, but that show has a special place just growing up, with. But so you're in the garage and you got your 3 boys. It's totally making me feel like home improvement moment.
Home improvement, baby.
And because they're always not interested in working with him. And he used to call Mark, and Mark, will you come in here? And Mark used to be kind of like the goody 2-shoes brother that would just listen and help him out. So yeah, you're teaching your boys here more than just how to put a bed together. You're teaching them gratitude for hey man, what, the roof over your head, the bed you get, the comfortable bed you lay in, the clothes you get to put on every day, the water that you get to use for a shower, none of that's a given, and like we just don't process that when we're little because all we know is what we know. And my daughter, she's grown up in a world with iPhones and iPads as your kids are. Yeah. She's 10 and has an iPad, and all she's been asking me for all week is a phone. I'm like, you have an iPad. Yeah, it's Wi-Fi only. So you can't you could text your family. You got your family in the phone that your mom put in there. She could text and FaceTime, call me anytime she wants, but she wants a phone because it's always like wanting that another thing. So I'm trying to work with her on it. But again, so in this moment where the kids, it sounds like they were a little bit reluctant to go out there. They're like, I want to play Xbox or whatever. So did it change once they saw what you were doing?
Absolutely. I had a 10-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. My other son was really, really small. But to see my daughter...
So he just held the flashlight.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to see my daughter in a little tutu with a drilling a screw into a piece of... you're helping them. But the point was just doing it together. And in the meantime, I'm teaching them or at least explaining to them, listen, there's someone that lives only a couple of miles from here. Kids in your grades that are sleeping on the floor. How would that make you feel? So it was a great dad teaching moment the whole time. And here, I was excited the fact that we built this bed together, but I was even more excited. I wanted the opportunity to deliver a bed because we built this bed not knowing any other child didn't have a bed. We were clueless, right? At least I was. I didn't know child bedlessness, although not a real word, is actually an extremely big problem, a real problem in our country.
Crisis, yeah.
It's a crisis.
So you thought you were helping one of one, and then you found out, holy smokes, this is a big situation here.
Well, I'm like, what do you do with this? And someone's like, well, why don't you put this bed on one of those buy-sell trade groups on Facebook, right? And so that's what I did. I'm like, and I wasn't a big social media guy. I'd post the pictures of my sturgeon I'd catch, and that's about it, And
when was this? Just to put it on a timeline.
It's 2012 is when this happened.
Okay.
2012. So 13 years ago. So I'm sitting here and I was a little worried putting, hey, I got a free bed for a child on Facebook because I figured every Tom, Dick, and Harry's going to call and want this free bed, And even though we got maybe a little bit of that, what was more astonishing to me was how many people wanted to help. I had people I'd never met. I had friends that I hadn't talked to for 20 years contact me. Hey, what can I do? This is amazing. Blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking, holy cow, there's a lot of people here. And then I started to read the conditions that some of these people knew these kids, what they were sleeping in. And finally, one of my friends.
And this isn't just like in the city, in the projects. This is like all. But this is one thing I'm super naive about this. So I'm really glad you're on the show to kind of educate me and anyone in the audience who doesn't realize that this is a crisis. This is in urban. This is also in suburban. Like, this is just all over. You think it's just in these really rough areas, but it's not. Oh, no. It's more. It's all over where kids are just sleeping on the couch, and you got two kids, maybe sleeping on a
they sleep on air mattresses.
Air mattresses
that obviously don't, or they share beds with mom
sleeping
and dad.
Bag.
Sleeping bags, the itchy couches. And I'll tell you, so the family that we selected, a friend of mine, she actually served a mission with me, and she said, "Hey, I'm in social services now. There's a family. They just got a house. They've been homeless their whole life." So I met Haley. Haley is a 6-year-old girl, never had a house. She's never had a bed, slept in the backseat of her mom's car since she was born. And so I said, Eureka, this is the example. This is the situation I wanted for me, but for my kids, and to learn and to provide a service for someone that really needed it, And so here we walk into this house, and Mike, I don't know, we've all seen poverty before, and we've seen transitioning homelessness and all this stuff, but I'd never seen it through the eyes of a 6-year-old. And when you see it like that, it changed me anyways. And here was this little girl, this little Haley. I said, "Hey," we didn't tell her why we were there. We just, "Hey, show me your house," And she's like, "Come see my room." So we come back in her room, and you can imagine. I mean, there's holes in the carpet and scratches on the walls. There's no doors on the closet, and paint's terrible. And but what got me, Mike, was in the corner was a stack of clothes, a nest of clothes. And that's what Haley slept on. She would come home from school, take her school clothes off, put her PJs on, sleep on her school clothes, and then repeat the cycle or reverse the cycle in the morning. That's where she slept. And I'd never seen that before. I mean, let alone never heard of it before. So we were pretty excited bringing in, as we brought in the pieces of the bed and then the mattress and the sheet, and we finally put this bed together. You could watch little Haley as she started figuring it out. She just erupted. I mean, came up, hugged us, complete strangers, right? These big dudes hugged us, went up to the bed, hugged the bed, kissed the bed. I've never seen a child kiss a bed before. It was unbelievable. And in her joy, you could feel it all the way through your soul.
Have you stayed connected with her? Do you know how she's doing now?
We didn't.
That'd be cool if you could, because then you can see how something like that was a seed that was planted. Now she's probably doing great things.
I would love it. I would, we didn't. Well, you got to remember, this was just a single one-shot Christmas project, And if Haley's reaction wasn't enough to melt your heart, I looked up at this single mom, and I got to be careful to start crying here. 6 years of struggle, of tears pouring down this lady's face, being raised by a single mom. I knew what every one of those little tears meant. I've saw it before. I've heard it before, and it crushed me. I mean, emotionally, I just went, oh my gosh. And Mike, we had about a 30-minute drive home after we delivered that bed. And me and my buddy, we really didn't talk to each other very much, right? It
was like you saw a ghost almost. Yeah.
It was, and I remember thinking on the way home, I'm a guy from Idaho. I'm a country kid from Idaho. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I love sports. I love college football on Saturdays. You know what? None of that. In the snap of a finger, all of that changed for me. I no longer really cared whether I'm going to see the game. I wasn't going to, if I was going to miss fishing because I'm building the beds, that my time spent doing that to solve that problem is the best use of my time that I knew. And so, so that's what we did. We went home and I said, you know what? We landed in my house, and I looked at my buddy and I said, you know what, Jordan, no kid is going to sleep on the floor in my town if I had anything to do with it. Now, the sad reality was there's a lot more than just one kid, and that was the problem we faced. Is the more we did, the more we built, and we built as many as we could. We took our full Christmas funds and built 21 beds, delivered them all before Santa that year. And it was the most amazing experience. But the problem is the more we built, the more we shared what we're doing and whatnot, the more kids and situations crawled out of the woodwork. And I learned how really bad this pandemic.
Yeah, because you were shining light on it.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden it's like it was a spotlight, but then you started to pull it back and you saw more kids over here and more over here and more. So it was a great problem to have, though, in a situation. I mean, not a great problem because you don't want more kids in a bad situation. But as you said, as you built more of these, you found out that more people needed help. So then you could help them. So that was the great problem there, is that you had more people you can help. And you did. We said 250,000. And that number's probably outdated now because it keeps growing and growing. 4 countries. We talked about 500,000 plus volunteer hours. And that number keeps going up. Oh, yeah. One thing I want to talk about, we have a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, business owners that tune into the show. I'm a business owner as well. And so we always talk about community and network and how important it is, and prioritizing that, the human connections. It sounds like the human connections in this situation is what really was the fuel early on. Talk about how that really contributed to success. Whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business, it feels like to me the people are the most important element. So share that.
100%. I grew up in the business world, and when SHP in about 2017 was, so about 5 years later, we were getting bigger. We started having more people interested in doing what we're doing in their own town, and at that time, we finally became a nonprofit rather than just a family Christmas project. And there's 2 things I learned. I learned through those years that, yes, child bedlessness is a major problem. And I only found one other nonprofit 13 years ago that was doing anything about it in the whole country, one. Wow. And so I knew that it was not something that people knew about, and it certainly wasn't something people were doing anything about, And so we dove in as hard and as fast and as strong as we could and started building, and then started putting on more chapters. But I also learned the reason why Sleep and Emily Peace, one of the reasons why we're so successful, and I actually coach and consult nonprofits on this, is I found that there is a community of people in this country that love to give back. They love to help. They just don't know how. And I knew right then, if we could provide a platform for people to be a part of the mission, even if it's just in a small way, but feel a part of the mission, and feel like they actually did something and contributed, then there are salesmen, there are spokespersons, there are mouths for reaching these children. And that's exactly what happened. We have a saying, our happiest volunteer is the sweatiest and the dustiest. And why is that? I mean, what we do, and we build beds from raw lumber to 4 hours later, we got 50 beds sitting in the warehouse. That's not easy work. But what it is it's good to be work. It's good that it is work. Because, I mean, if you're going to take time out of your Saturday morning and miss your college football game or miss your kid's practice or whatever, right? To take time to go and help a child by building a bed, you want to feel like you contributed. You want to feel like your volunteer hours and time was spent. And that's
you literally physically contributed to the success of the mission. Yeah. You
touched every piece of wood that came through that not only is going to help a child get a bed, but a bed for 10 plus years, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fulfillment that comes from serving your volunteers, and I relate this to both for-profit and nonprofit sectors, is the experience that your salesmen have, the experience that your customer has. And I'm not even talking with the product. Whatever the product is obviously needs to work, or else you're going to be out of business for real quick. But the experience that they have with every aspect of your company, every aspect within your company, is extremely important. And your employees. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started and stopped and sold many businesses, and I love it.
Yeah.
The connection that you make with your employees, if it's the proper connection and the right people, those are long-lasting friends. And you get to see your employees grow, and as well as your customers, and the connections you make within your communities, within your own organizations, big or small. It's amazing. And that's really where the rubber meets the road for nonprofits, for-profits, for successes of companies, is if you enjoy it and you can help other people see and feel the enjoyment of it, you're on your way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's got a positive, contagious connection for sure. So there's a lot of business owners tuning in that can, maybe they have something going on at church or their own organization. A lot of times we'll partner up with something, right? A United Way or something, that's, maybe a smaller, more local connection, a community. So if someone's tuning in right now and they're like, wow, we want to check into this like in our local community and see how we can make a difference. And maybe it's start a chapter or it's help an existing chapter. How did they get connected? How do they get tuned in? And what's that process look like?
Absolutely. So anybody can go to our website, shpbeds.org, and there's a bunch of ways that you can participate. Of course, we're a nonprofit. I'm going to get the easiest one out of the way, or the simplest one. Every nonprofit needs money. Donation's great. And the way we set that up, when I started, or when I decided, hey, let's be a nonprofit because I can't finance this myself. I said, but I'm not going to be a nonprofit that you donate money to. It goes to a pie in the sky. You have no idea where your dollar goes. You don't know if your money helped someone next door or someone 5 states over, right? So the way we set it up is when you donate money to Sleep in Heavenly Peace, you get to pick which chapter that money goes to, and it stays there. The only thing we take, of course, as a business, you have overhead, and you have to, you got management expenses and things of that nature. Yeah. We take 10%. That's it. 10% from every donation. 90% of your dollar, 90 cents stays in that community. The bed stays in that community. So that's important. I want your listeners to understand. So if this compels you, do you want to help and support your local chapter? Know that your money stays there. Number 2, I ask all of the audience, please raise awareness. Let people know. Don't be shy. Share this podcast with others. Share the fact that there are children in your community. 3% or greater of your total population represents kids sleeping on the floor. And that is very weak stats. I think could be in areas triple that. But there are kids across the street from you right now that don't have beds. You don't know it, and no one does. So the only way that we can reach these kids, let these families know that there is relief and there's services out there, is by our communities. It's us. It's opening our mouths and sharing these problems, these needs. And of course, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, we're now the largest bed building charity in the world. That's not a braggy thing. It's just there's not very many. And so we're trying to expand as much as we can. So you can spread awareness. You can then on shpbeds.org, you can locate the closest chapter to you. If you have one, connect with them. They're always looking for either core team volunteers that want to stick around and help build beds and deliver them all the time, or if you just want to deliver them one time or whatever, go build beds, that they're looking for people that need help. And then the last thing is, if there is no chapter next to you, and this really tears at your heart and you feel like, you know what, I can actually make a difference in my community. I looked into this. There's kids on the floor. They're not getting help. You can start a chapter. And we have a tab on our website to start a chapter. And we have a very, very robust training process. It's, a couple of online situations for a month or so. And then we fly you to Lehi, Utah. That's where I'm at this weekend, actually.
Yeah.
And we take a weekend and we train you everything that you need to know. And then when you go home, really, we want our chapters to focus in on 3 things: raise money, build beds, deliver beds. That's it. We take care of all the other minutia when it comes to nonprofit filing and administration stuff. We make it as easy as possible, because what we want, Mike, is we want people in your communities, people that really want to give back, people that have the gump, the grit to be able to fight through these life's challenges we have to help these little humans. And so those are the ways that people can give back.
Man, you got me so juiced up right now, just excited to hear about that. Like, dude, you're the man, and I know you're not looking for the pat on the back, but like the fact that it just started in your garage, one bed, one purpose, and then it was 21 beds for Christmas, and then it was 350 children. 350,000 children, right? Is the number of 250,000 growing?
We're knocking on 300,000 right now. Yeah.
Who the heck knows what the number is? Because you're out there, you're training people. Right by the end of this weekend, that number is going to probably be over what I just said. So I think it's awesome that you literally have like every level. Like you could, if you want to donate, it could be monetary. If you want to donate your time, we'll take that. If you want to, hammer a nail, you could do that. Whatever. Like there's so many different ways that people can give their time, give their effort, and make a difference. So, and again, I love the idea that I really love the idea that if there's not a chapter, someone can start it, because there's going to be a lot of change makers listening that are like, there's not really an opportunity here. Or if I try to partner with someone I don't know, or because you can build it, you can build what Luke has done and do it for your local community and just be part of something that already exists. It's almost like, we talk about franchises, because my co-host who couldn't be on, Dave, he's an expert in franchising, and he always talks about like however, you get all the right things down, and then you can start to scale, after you do those things. And like starting a nonprofit's not an easy gig.
No.
And so like if someone tried to do something similar to this, they're going to run in all these roadblocks. Like, hey, you have the systems down. You've made all the mistakes. You've done things right that you're doubling down on now, right? So, like take the framework that exists and somebody can go and create it. I just got to hit on a couple things, but go ahead. I was
just going to say, that's what I learned is as a nonprofit, I'm a farm kid from Idaho, Mike. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I don't want to say I'm simple-minded. I'm no rocket science, but I will say I'm smart enough to realize one kid from Idaho isn't going to change the lives of every child and provide beds for every child. A community's going to, and this was much bigger than one guy. It's bigger than one town, one state, even one country. And it gets solved by the community. So almost all of our efforts, as much as we can, is centered on supporting the community. The one of the ways that we do best, that way best, is like your listeners own companies. You've got employees. You're looking for ways to build team building exercises and bring your community together and let your community know that your company cares. Well, we have sponsored builds where most of our builds are companies that donate $300 for every bed that you want to build, because we provide everything: mattress, sheet set, the whole thing, delivery, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. Your employees with you can come together and we can take 10 or 200 people and we can build 10 or 200 beds, all in one 4 hour increment. And it's such a great experience. Almost every company that does that ends up re-signing up for next year because it's such a fun activity. We have Lowe's as one of our largest sponsors, actually our largest sponsor. And we do a big event with them, four or five big events. In fact, we have a big, huge event with them coming up here in a couple of weeks in downtown Charlotte Convention Center. 24 hours straight build with thousands of volunteers. We're going to build 5,000 beds in 24 hours. It's going to be amazing. Good. And that's what these companies can do. They can give back to the community. All those beds are going to go to the local communities around the Charlotte area. And we can do that for anybody. I just flew in from Maryland, Solomon, Maryland yesterday, and we built beds down there at one of the nuclear plants, which was kind of interesting. Never seen an AR guy walking around with an AR at the bed build before, but it was really amazing. And that was the platform, like you said. Like I'd love to have your co-host talk about franchise, because we looked at this as kind of like a franchise. We just wanted to provide and set up a template that people could then copy, and we've been through the exercise of working out most of the bugs, right? And
you want to make it as easy as possible to make a difference. So like the fact that you have that down and people can start a chapter, like I don't want to say there's no excuses. There's a lot that goes into it, but you have like the least amount of resistance right now to get started because it's been figured out. Yeah.
And people, there's seasons of life for people. I'd say like most of our chapters presidents right now are retired people. We've got guys that are in their 80s and they're friends. They go play golf, and then in the afternoon they go deliver beds. It's hilarious. It's awesome. They love it, And we have young entrepreneurs too that they just do this when they can. If you only build 50 beds a year, who cares? We have some chapters that build 2,000 beds a year, but they have huge teams and they're all retired. And this is basically their full-time job now, and they love it. No one at the chapter level gets paid. These are all amazing individuals that get paid. Their currency, I'm telling you, you can watch videos, you can listen to me or anybody talk about their experience delivering beds to children that don't have any. But until you're in that room and you watch this, you watch this 9-year-old hide behind his mom because this stranger, this dude with a beard is in his room putting something together. The minute he starts to see, oh my gosh, that's a bed. I've never slept in one. 10 years old. That apprehension turns to appreciation, then turns to love. And you get to see that and you get to feel that. And that's really why that's the currency we get paid by is seeing these kids. We think we're blessing them. I tell you what, it's quite the opposite. We get blessed when we see these kids. They're in these situations not because of their choices. It's someone else's choice. And I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to help your child get a good night's sleep. And so that's what we focus in on. These kids, poor night's sleep. They got no confidence. They don't really have a lot of possession. They don't understand that. They're either sharing, the little kid gets kicked off the bed at night. I mean, there's just all these things. And when I saw that single mom crying, I knew right then, Mike, this was way more than just a single bed. This is way more than just a good night's sleep for a child. I can't tell you how many foster care situations where we had two kids, they're going to be split up. They're going to go, the only two people they know in their life are each other, brother and sister. They're going to be split up because the foster care family doesn't have another bed for them. The judge gave them 24 hours and we had a bed in that room, in that house in 12 hours, and those kids get. I mean, what better story than these kids that lost their parents, lost their grandparents, and now they get to stay together simply because a couple of people spent a few hours building beds for kids. I mean, it's just, it's beautiful. It's so much fun.
Man, I got chills. I got chills listening to you today. I just have so much respect for what you're doing. Cheers to what you're doing. And I just want to say again, sleep in heavenly peace. What was the website one more time?
shpbeds.org. Sam, Harry, Paul, sleep in peace, shpbeds.org.
Okay, cool. So the initials and then beds, you said .com? .org.
.org, plural.
.org.
Yep.
Okay. So that's in the show notes, so people can go ahead and click on it, check out the chapters, start their own chapters. Wow. I'm over here just ear to ear smiling. If you guys are listening on Apple, you're missing out because this whole time I'm just sitting back here just smiling, just thinking, how amazing is this situation?
Thank you.
Going to be foster kids split up 12 hours later, solution. Little Haley, right? Doesn't know, what sleeping on a bed feels like. She's sleeping on her clothing.
You can go to our website too, Mike, and we got videos all over the place. One video, Micro, Dirty Jobs Micro. Who doesn't love Micro, right?
Yeah.
He did a show on us called Returning the Favor. Well, he did a show called Returning the Favor. We were season 2, episode 9. And
I listened to that.
Oh yeah. If you saw when he goes into that basement, we deliver beds to kids that were literally sleeping on concrete in the middle of an Idaho winter. Not a fun experience. All they had was cold concrete floor with a blanket down and a blanket on top. That's it. And I remember Mike turned to me, and we're good friends, and he turned to me. He's like, Luke, he said, I had no idea. And I'm like, Mike, no one does. He brought something up, and I know we got to go here, but I want to share this story. I was on his podcast, the way I heard it a year or so ago. And he says, Luke, I've been thinking about you. He says, it's interesting. We talk about a child's bedroom, but if he doesn't have a bed in the room, it's just a room. It's not a bedroom. And that was so profound to me. It's right. It's no different than a kitchen or a living room or the playroom. And that's the significance, one of the significance of having a bed in a room. This is a secret hiding place. It's their SHP. It's their own place to escape. I mean, how many times you and I have a hard day. It's stressful. We have anxiety. What do? I got to go lay down. Well, for crying out loud, if you're laid down on concrete, it's just too much to think about sometimes. And so
a lot of times we think about sleep like as an adult, right? Like, I need to get my restful sleep for my day to set up my day. You kind of forget like how important sleep is for children, for their growth, for their well-being. And I know you can go on for a whole hour just about that topic. And I wish we did have more time. I'll have you on again. I'd love to have you on and check in
great.
And see that we're at 500,000 plus kids and
baby.
1 million plus, and we keep going. And I'd love to get involved with this personally. The reason why I mentioned that I'm over here smiling ear to ears, I know so many people that would love to help and make an impact. A lot of the people on my show, it's not just business success we're talking about. It's making a difference. My thing is be great and be grateful. Be grateful for the things we have, but then be great in your own greatness, because we're all here to serve a bigger purpose than just, put more green paper in our bank account. Yeah. And like you said, the currency for sleep and heavenly peace, when people, whether it's monetary or like I said, they're swinging a hammer and putting a bed together, the currency there is a children's life being positively impacted. And when you feel it, and I felt it as you're sharing the stories, the Haley story, the brothers, sleeping on the concrete floor. I just want everyone who's tuning in right now, and I'm gonna share this episode as much as I always share my episodes, probably a lot more than I usually share it, because of the impact that you're making. And I know so many people in my network love to make a difference. So whether they just donate $5 or start a chapter and anywhere in between, there's a lot of people that I'm excited to get this out to them. So again, sleep in heavenly peace at shpbeds.org.
Yes.
Check it out.
Absolutely.
I know we got to run. Let's do this again. I didn't get to our sponsors, but that's fine. I just want to say, man, just really excited to see you grow. And I know we talked off camera about a few things. So I'd love to stay connected to you.
Yeah.
And let's keep building this thing together. And I just said it earlier. Be great and be grateful. And man, I'm grateful for having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, everybody.